Hi, this is Darren from Property Prosperity. Today I'm going to go through another suburb profile and just give you a little bit more information about a suburb in particular. The suburb I've chosen for today's episode is Seaton. So I'm not sure if anyone knows about Seaton. If you're from Adelaide, you might have heard of them before, maybe even not. So it's in the western suburbs. It's pretty much between the city and the sea, so it's a pretty desirable sort of area. It's an area that's sort of, I suppose, up and coming. There's some older houses that some of them are housing trusts that are sort of either being knocked down and subdivided, or they're being renovated and done up a bit. You know, mainly brick homes on there, on relatively good sized blocks, sort of, you know, around 700 square meters, the average size. You know, around about sort of 18-meter frontages. So they're good opportunity for development if you are looking at developing around that area, or renovating a home, or if you're a first home buyer and you want to try and get into the market, but you want to be in an area where it's probably going to go up over time, hopefully. So I thought I'd use this as a bit of a sample and go through. Bear in mind I'm going to be looking down at my computer a little bit, so apologies for not looking straight at you, but not much I can do about that, unfortunately. So Seaton's actually about 6 square kilometres in size, so it's not a huge suburb. There does have 11 parks covering, you know, almost just over 30% of the suburb is covered by parks. So you can imagine that would make it a pretty nice area to live, and obviously it's, I don't know if you know, but it's pretty close to everything. It's close to you know, Westlake Shopping Centre, the big Westfield there. It's close to golf courses, and obviously I mentioned the beach and the city, and it's a pretty good location as far as close to public transport and everything. So what do we got here? As far as the population goes, there's around about 9,850 people living in Seaton. So you know, it's and to be honest, it's probably not going to grow particularly fast. Really, any new growth is going to come from development. A house is being knocked down and subdivided, so it's just going to keep putting along over time. But the thing is, it's always going to be a desirable area, and the desirability is just going to increase over time because of the fact it's you know, location. To be honest, it's you know, close to the city, close to the beach, you know, close to all the amenities that people are looking for. So because there's limited supply and there's always going to be that demand there over time, you know, over the long term, if there's lots of demand and not much supply, prices are going to have to go up over time. So, you know, that's a good sign for the suburb. The median house price in there is around about the, you know, 470, 480 mark. I'm just having a quick look at my details here. It's in the city of Charles Sturt. If you're looking at doing development for the city of Charles Sturt, they're probably not too bad, I suppose. They do have their rules and that you sort of want to stick to as much as possible. They don't sort of like to go outside the square that much, but yeah, they're not the worst suburb council in the world to deal with. They're about 8 kilometres away from the centre of the city, so you know, that's not that far away. There's about 3,500 properties in there. They've got number of the sales in the last 12 months around about 165 properties. So that's, you know, almost 5% of the properties have been sold in the last 12 months. So, you know, that's reasonable amount of turnover. So if you're looking for an area that people are buying and selling, that's, you know, that's a reasonable amount there. The median sales price in the last 12 months was about 458,000. If we look at the median sales price in the last 3 months, so that's picking, remember, the median sales price is not the average, it's the middle price that something sold for. If we just look at the last 3 months, the median price was 480. If we look over the last 12 months, it was about 458,000. So that gives us a bit of a sign. It looks like the market's slowly going up there, because if you can look in the last 3 months compared to the last 12 months. And if we look at the change in like the house prices, if we look at the 5-year annual compounding growth rates, it's grown by just over 1%, you know, which is not a lot. So again, that's another, if you've been following the Adelaide property market for a while, it hasn't really done a lot for quite a while. So if we're looking after over the last 5 years, you know, it's about 1% return on your money as far as, you know, growth in the property. Over the last 10 years, about 4.7%. If we're looking over the last 20 years, it's about 7.1%. So that's when people are talking about prices doubling every 10 years. You know, that's just over 7%. And this is, you know, fitting in with that over the long term. That's the thing when people talk about property prices and statistics and all that sort of stuff. You got to remember, you've got to look over a long term and over, you know, averaging out over time. So if you look over 20 years, you know, it has matched up with that properties doubling every 10 years. If you look at it over the last 5 years, you know, 1% is not doing much at all. So, you know, you could almost put your money in the bank and be better off, I suppose. So Some other interesting things we've got here. What else we got? Number of listings in the last 12 months. So there's 135 properties came onto the market in the last 12 months. And the median number of days that a property's been on the market for is 44 days. So it's not particularly long, to be honest. By the time you put a property on the market and you get a few people come and have a look at it and you wheel and deal and put it, negotiate a bit, that's a couple of weeks gone already. So that's 14 days. And then by the time you settle on the property, then so 44 days is probably a bit less than average. So it shows there is plenty of demand out there. There's plenty of desirability. Shows properties are fairly well, people are keeping an eye on the properties, I suppose, in that area. Let's have a look at what else we got here. Is average hold period about 8 years is the average time that people hold on to their markets for. So again, that would probably indicate a lot of the people are in for the long term. 8 years is a fair amount of time. So again, that's again another sign of stability in the market. And what you're trying to buy, particularly if you're going to buy an investment, you want something where there's a lot of owner occupiers in the properties because they're going to hang on to it for the they're going to look after their houses, I suppose, and make the area more desirable. So that makes it really good for getting tenants as well, because tenants quite often want to live in areas where it seems a bit nice, and you're probably going to get higher rents than you otherwise would. Anything else interesting? The median age for people living there is around about 40 years old. So again, that would probably give you a bit of a hint. It's probably young families with kids and all that sort of stuff. Let's have a look here as the percentage of family households, about 63%. So again, 2/3 of the people living there are families. So it gives you another sign that it's probably a pretty nice little area to live. Percentage of people born in Australia, about 70% of people are born in Australia. The average household size is around about 2.3. So again, it's a couple with one child or two kids. So let's have a look. 67% are separate houses, detached houses. So again, that's what I talked about before. Development potential of the area hasn't particularly been developed that much so far, but over time you're going to start to find a lot of these houses are going to be knocked down and subdivided. With the development constraints, they're most likely just going to be they're most likely just going to be little subdivision 1 into 2. They're going to be probably 350 square metre blocks. So you'll fit a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, single garage sort of house on there. So probably worth pretty similar to what the old house on the big block will be worth. Is the smaller house on the smaller block, but brand new house is going to be worth around about the same amount of money. What else we got in here? That's pretty much it, I think. So that's some pretty interesting things to note, I suppose. So now, if you know the area of Seaton, you probably have a bit of a gut feel of what the numbers have come out at. So it's probably no surprise to you, some of this thing, but it's good to go through statistics and just confirm your understanding of what the market's doing and what where we think things are going. But you can see it's a pretty stable market. It's a pretty desirable area. Remember the whole thing I talked about with the supply and demand thing. There's going to continue to be demand for that area. There's limited supply, so over time you're probably going to imagine the market's going to continue to go up over time. And we've seen that in the last 3 months. Like I mentioned, that the market has kicked a little bit around that area, and there's not really any reason to think market's not continue to go up over time because low interest rates and everything else is making it all look pretty positive for Seaton. So if you live in Seaton, and hopefully you found this interesting, and if you know someone who lives in Seaton, then maybe you want to share this with them, and hopefully they'll find it interesting too. And if you've liked what I had to say, then click on the like button. If you haven't liked it, then still click on the like button anyway, because I'd really appreciate it. And if you've got a suburb that you'd be interested in finding out a little bit more about what the market's doing around where you're living, or where you've got an investment property, then feel free to put the name of your suburb in your comments box, and I'm happy to have a look into that in a bit more detail for you. If you've got any questions you want me to answer in future episodes, then put a comment in the comment box. Happy to try and help out. So thanks guys, I appreciate your time, and I look forward to talking again soon. Thanks.